All right, so this is kind of answering a question for Penelope Lola, who asked a good question. How do you disprove a typing? So how do you know a typing is wrong? How can you invalidate a typing? So this could be in the context of yourself, like how do you know that the typing someone gave you or the typing you gave yourself is wrong? And you're doing that internal reflecting. Or this could be in the case of you're seeing someone else got typed, some celebrity, some, whatever person, and you're like, nah, typing is wrong. That's incorrect right there. And you want to disprove that, right? Maybe because you're some intellectual nerd and you want to get into those kind of intellectual arguments like some of us enjoy doing. How could we really do that in the socionic sense? Well, to me, I would say that the first option you really have is to look at the structure and identify what are those fixed non-negotiable points in the type. I think this is the most practical way of doing it because of the fact that you want to find something that, at least in argument, is again non-negotiable. It has to be. It must be in order to make sense. Otherwise, the whole damn thing falls apart, right? So what are those areas? It's going to be the fixed, um, static, unyielding, inert. These are sometimes different words that get used and thrown around. Those inert functions that a type is supposed to have. Right. So share screen here. I've played around with this in a while. All right. Look at that. So coincidentally, I had an ENFJ thing on my screen. I don't know why. I must have been thinking about doing something ENFJ. Anyway, all right. So this is your basic Model A kind of standard breakdown, right, for an ENFJ or an EIE. Now, everything on the left column, so this FESISEFI, all this right here, these would all be those inert, fixed, static, whatever word you want to use, okay, functions in the case of an EIE, which means these are the things that should not be bending and flexing and being situational. Everything on the right is so-called flexible or situational, or another term is contact, right? You see this again in older versions of socionics, whatever. I enjoy using those terms like situational or flexible. I like those. It makes sense. Why? Everything here on the right, a person can use it situationally. It depends on the situation they're in, on the context that they're in. They can use these elements. They can not use those elements. They can use it a little bit. They can use it kind of sort of. So they come and go, right? They come and go. So because they come and go, they're not really the kind of thing you want to bank your argument on. But all the stuff on the left is the stuff that should not be coming and going. It's either going to be on or it's going to be off. It's going to be they're using it all the time or they're not using it at all. They're refusing to use it. So this is the column you're really going to focus on to kind of prove or disprove a particular typing. So in the case of an EIE and ENFJ, we should be seeing that FE is very active, very present all the time in this person. If you're listening to, let's say, an interview, or you're interviewing the person, you're talking to them directly, or you're just watching someone interview them, whatever, you should notice that the person is using a lot of FE, but a lot of their answers, a lot of the things that they bring up as motivation often relates to FE things, right? It keeps coming back. And so you realize, okay, FE does seem to be continuously on and active, and it's clearly a major motivation and driving force for this person. On the flip side of this, For an EIE, we should notice that SI stuff is continuously off. It's something that the individual is not really interested in talking about. They don't seem to want to show much importance in this. They maybe downplay it. They talk about why is it irrelevant at all. It just never seems to be an important issue for them, right? It's continuously off, continuously uninteresting to them. Something I'd like to bring up, because I think this is important in the practical realm of typing and stuff. Um, Sometimes you might see the polar function, in this case the SI, as being a really horrifically bad weak spot. Like it's absurdly obvious. So let's take an example of that EIE person who is like a rock star who just doesn't give a shit about their body at all, right? They are just using and abusing their body, and they're the classic rock star who is doing so much drugs, so much whatever, that they're like dead by 27, right? It was rock out forever, right? You'll see some individuals that are that bad, but there's a lot of, let's call them normal people. Okay, they're not some kind of huge rock star or something like that that happen to be EIE, and their SI is not that bad. Okay, they are able to sort of like survive and take care of themselves, and they're not completely abusing their bodies and so on. Okay, but at the end of the day, it's still an area that they just don't really care about. They don't talk about it much. They put very little effort into it. Maybe you'll notice some more reasonable things like they don't ever go to bed on time. Uh, they skip meals or care nothing about their nutrition and what they're putting in their body to eat. They just they just eat and like eat whatever and just move on. They show such little interest and emphasis on that. And the same could be said for LIEs, right? Just kind of carrying on. They just put food in their mouth because food is just something to eat and carry on. They just don't care, right? So that's important, especially for those people who sometimes I feel like they take certain things to an extreme where they feel like the polar function has to be this like really, really bad, you're like not even surviving bad kind of thing. It's a bit much. Anyway, back to the topic. So as I said, these things on the left here are all the fixed things, right? We should also notice with an EIE that there's some SE that's popping out from time to time. They're really showing an interest in being more active and really getting things done quickly, using maybe a little bit of force and drive to get things done. Um, Maybe even participating in some more competitive stuff. Like there is more energy to get moving. And they do value that. You'll notice they'll probably talk about the need to get things done, the need to have to assert some kind of strength, to have leadership, to have dominance. They'll mention these things. They'll talk about these things. Meanwhile, the FI is always being kind of ignored. It's just not as important to them. They can be good at it and they'll demonstrate, yeah, I know who this person is. I know what they are to me. I know how I feel about this person or that person, but yeah, whatever. I don't really want to talk about it all that much because really what's important is getting the people passionate and fired up about something, the mood that you're creating, the attitude that you're creating, getting people to really feel passionate about a particular thing, a particular topic, or whatever's happening, right? That's more important. And as long as we get everybody fired up about something, that's ultimately what's more important rather than the individual characters involved, right? So everything on the left is what you're looking for. Now, if you were to look at somebody that you thought was let's say an EIE, but you start to realize that they're talking too much about SI related things, especially in a positive way, right? They're really saying good things about waking up in the morning and having a nice, comfortable cup of coffee. And there's a very specific way they like to prepare it, along with their like yogurt that they have and taking that sweet time, and they're really discussing these things a lot, especially unprompted. I really want to emphasize this. Unprompted. Nobody asked you about this. No, the interviewer didn't take you to this place. They're just willingly kind of engaging in this kind of very SI sort of stuff. That should be kind of a red flag. That should be a moment to go, wait a minute. Why is this supposed SI polar type discussing SI things so much? So willingly. What's going on here? It might be excusable if you see it happen maybe once, once or twice or something like that, very little, okay, a little short, but if you see this as kind of a thing that keeps popping up, then it's like, no, we might have a problem with this type, right? If you're noticing maybe there's supposed to be an EIE, but they're spending a lot of time discussing stuff that is very not FE, right? It's kind of going against the FE things. There's no seeming FE motivation, then you might want to go, there could be a problem here, right? Something might be missing. So hopefully you're getting the point about this. So whether you're typing yourself or you're typing someone else or a celebrity or like I said, something like that, you want to disprove a typing, you can kind of point to that individual saying, look, here are all these examples of this person who is supposedly an ENFJ, and they are going on and on about SI shit or using a lot of SI stuff or using way too much FI. They're really emphasizing that. Like we may have ourselves a bit of a problem on this typing. I'm very much an evidence guy. So to me, you need to show that evidence. You need to show those interviews or those moments or the behavior, right? Now, behavior is a bit of a tricky thing in socionics because just because someone is doing a thing, they're behaving in a certain way, it doesn't mean you necessarily know what the motivation is. Okay. You need to try to figure out what is the motivation. Unfortunately, you often have to get that from the horse's mouth. You have to ask the person, why did you do this? What were you doing? Okay, what was the motivation that made you want to do that? What was your focus when you were doing that? And then the person can now elaborate and say, well, I did it for these particular reasons that I really wanted to get people on board about this particular subject. I really thought that I could motivate people and get them kind of fired up about this particular concept that I think is so important. Okay, like, oh, okay, all right. So that's why you're doing it. So there's a desire to influence and motivate other people, get people excited about a thing, or get people upset about a particular thing, right? You want them to feel something about a particular topic. Oh, okay, all right. So we are getting back to FE, right? So in summary, how do we know? What are we doing really? We're focusing on these uh, fixed functions here on the left column of model A. Again, this is model A. So if you're already playing around with model G or model B or C or D or L or T or X, Y, to blah, 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 different story, different conversation, right? But for model A, this is how the model is laid out. Everything on the left should be fixed and doesn't really move. The person should be exhibiting that a lot and all the time. On the right, it does move, it's flexible. So don't concentrate on that. And again, be careful if you're typing them just on their behavior. Try to really get their underlying motivation. What was it they were really trying to do? What was it they really were interested in doing that created that behavior? That's what you want to try to find out. All right. So good question from Penelope. Hopefully this helps her. And really, especially a lot of other people out there who probably have the same question. Um, pretty much. Again, what I just talked about there, I would say matters whether you're doing a typing session interview, whether you're typing a celebrity, whether you're typing your mom and your dad and what it's the same across the boards. It doesn't matter. This is the shit you're looking for in the model, right? Once you've come to an opinion on their type, you think they're this, okay. Now that you've put all the pieces where they're supposed to go, does it still make sense? Are all the fixed things making sense? Are all of the flexible parts making sense? Right? Are all the pieces that are supposed to be um, bold and noticeable, all the things they're supposed to be pushing out very strongly, is that really happening or is it not? Right? That's how you ultimately come to a typing and how you make your case for a typing and argue for a typing with good, solid reasons, good, solid backing that can make sense. Right? Is it foolproof? Of course not. Everything has a weakness. Everything has its failings, right? But it's the best way to create a good argument and a good case that could actually persuade somebody on a person's type. Okay. So let me know what you guys think. Comments, as always. Did it help? Did it not help? Something more you'd like me to elaborate on? Yeah, basically. So there you go. Live long and prosper, people.